Greetings, friends, and welcome to another episode of Tim Kirby Russia, where I, veteran political analyst and radio talk show's Tim Kirby, tell you how the world looks through a Russian lens. I should know, I've been here long enough. Today's guest is Sonja van den Ende, who is an independent journalist who was curious and went down to the Donbass to see things for herself, and she has some interesting stories to tell. But before we get to our guest, let's talk a little bit about journalists on the front line. Now, friends, one of the most important things I have to say is that in our modern times, we have the problem where if you are not part of the mainstream media, you essentially are poor if you're a journalist, okay? So one thing we have to understand is there are a lot of independent journalists who write pleasant articles from the comfort of their home, and then there are independent journalists who go to the front lines basically on donations from like Patreon or something. So I have a heck of a lot of respect for any independent journalist who went to the front lines on the other side of the line to try to find the other side of the story. That's a lot of risk to go into a war zone with no gun on no money. Now, one important factor for you when you're looking at the material from some independent journalist or mainstream media journalist who's on the front lines is whether they're actually on the front lines doing investigative work or whether they're on a press tour. Now, what's a press tour? That's basically when like a company or a government or some organization puts together almost like a mini vacation for journalists where everyone goes together and they sort of show them, we want to show you this. Okay, guys, let's go do this. Okay, guys, we'll show you this. And it generally involves a very pleasant experience in order to get pleasant results. You know, it actually kind of reminds me of the way that vacations look in North Korea, where there's always some sort of handler making sure you have a good time. So essentially, that's what a press tour is. And I've been on a few of them. They're fun because you're taking a vacation on someone else's dime. But they're really filtering all the information that you're getting, and they're making sure that you are going to by your own will, so to say, voluntarily write wonderful things about them. And even in a war zone, this sort of press tour factor can happen. So if you feel that someone, be they the mainstream media especially, or independent journalists, kind of seem to be just sort of led around like a scared puppy and they don't really know what they're doing, then there's a very good chance that they're actually on a press tour and not really doing investigative journalism, even if that press tour happens to have bullets and artillery shells whizzing around in the background. So that's just a factor I just wanted to mention where you can kind of see the difference between true independent journalism and people who are sort of on like some sort of safari vacation, be they independent or whatever. So anyways, let's talk to someone who is not on a safari, who went down to the Donbass to see what things are really like through their own volition and is now exiled in Russia for the rest of their lives. Let's talk to Sonja van den Ende. Tim Kirby Russia. Right across from me is Sonja van den Ende, who is a journalist who you may have actually read some of her work, and she is now, as of, I guess, yesterday, you're now a permanent part of Russia with a temporary residency permit. So first off, congratulations. And before we talk about your opinions and some of your work as a journalist, I think it'd be kind of interesting for the audience to hear, how did it come that now you're kind of with me on the Exile Club here in Russia? So now you're stuck here because you were originally from the Netherlands, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Well, I came here 8 months ago to cover the special operation in the Donbass. So I went there 2 times, and then I got here. Somebody told me here that, oh, sorry, but I think when you go back to the Netherlands, you will be in a big trouble. So I tried to figure out what was going on there, and well, they put sanctions. First of all, I'm on the EU disinformation list. So that's the whole Europe. And then the special service, secret service in the Netherlands, I'm also on their list.
Oh, yeah. Well, so hold on. You're kind of jumping ahead. So what you're saying is there isn't a list within the EU of journalists who cover Russia-related things and say things that they don't like, or who's on this list besides yourself?
Well, journalists who cover Russia, who cover, for instance, the Middle East, like Syria, Lebanon, Iraq.
Yeah, I see.
Also. So they call us, we are spreading misinformation. That's how they call it.
And do you face jail time, or you're not allowed to work as a journalist, or what's essentially the punishment of being on this list?
Well, on this list, they will not allow you to work for regular news outlets, of course. So that's number one. And in my own country, they will probably not. Maybe they will put me in jail. I don't know about this, but
best not
most
try to find
likely,
out.
yeah. No. I will not try to find out. So I will not go back now. So,
Okay.
but most likely, yes, this is what they will do.
Well, since you possibly sacrificed for the rest of your life the potential to be in your country of origin to film the Donbass, maybe you could tell us about what you filmed and what you saw and what you wrote about in the Donbass.
Well, I wrote a lot of articles about it. I think about 10 or 12. I went on 8 or 9 trips all the time, a few days I went there. And yes, I covered Mariupol, Volnovakha, Luhansk, actually the whole region I went to, and I saw the remnants of the Azov battalion. I was in Azov steel factory.
Yeah.
So yes, I saw the whole picture, actually, what was going on there. And it was horrible.
So you were going into the Azov steel factory after it was taken by the Russians, right?
Yes, a few days. It was taken in May, and after 3-4 days, we went in with a group of journalists, and we saw all the things from the Azov there. Could still smell, unfortunately, the bodies.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Besides the unfortunate odors, what was down there?
A lot of stuff from them. So, like, they had all these signs from Nazi Germany. Like Mein Kampf was still there.
Oh, I see.
The SS signs. A lot of books about combat. They had military stuff from the SS from Germany, from these old books, or from the neo-Nazis.
Yeah.
Also, there was a manual from, I suppose, from NATO somehow. There was a manual how to do certain things in combat, so that is what they were studying. So a lot the personal stuff like clothes and helmets, is all still there.
And what did you talk to any of the locals in Mariupol about their experience living in the situation? What did they have to say?
I spoke to a lot of locals, mainly a lot of women, because the men were on the front, women with children, older women. And they all actually say the same thing. It's there are Nazis. They came here, and we had to go into the basement because they take us hostage in the basement. So that's very terrible. Some of them didn't have food for a few days, and also they said when they sent people out of the basement to get even food for this Azov battalion who was holding them hostage, and they were shot in the knees. So this was very terrible. And that is usually the men, because there's still old men there, maybe a few younger ones. And it was terrible. And they raided the shops there. They destroyed the whole thing, apartment buildings, shot people randomly. So, horrible.
Now, who allowed you to go into Azovstal? Was this then the Russian military or the local militias, like the DNR, LNR militias, or who got you in there? And also, how did they? Let me put it this way. I could imagine that they might have some suspicions about you as a Western journalist going down there. So how did that all come about?
Well, we actually went with the Russian army. So this was from the Ministry of Defense.
Okay, so the actual Russian army, Ministry of Defense.
Yeah,
gotcha.
They somehow protected us. That, you never know what, anything can happen there. So there were always few military guys there to protect us. So we went in with them. And of course, when I spoke to people, because I don't speak now, I'm trying to learn Russian, of course.
No. Takes time.
Takes time, but okay. But that time it was in the beginning, so I was here for 1 or 2 months. So I needed a translator, and in the beginning they were always from the Netherlands, the West. This is this is the result of what is going on, because the West is supporting all this Azov militia here. But after a while, then I spoke to them. I said, of course, I'm not supporting Azov militia. I try to cover this here and give a clear view what is really going on here, and not what the mainstream media in the West is telling. And
so initially, they were very skeptical of you, basically.
Yeah, sure.
I see.
Yeah. But when they got explained how, why, and what I'm doing, then they were, very good that you're here. And then they were very happy.
Well, you definitely mentioned that there was what we would call blowback for your opinions back home in the Netherlands. But has anything that you've written maybe disappointed the Russian side, or have you heard anything? Or is Russia a lot more open-minded than one might think?
Yeah, I think the last open-minded. Because in the West they say, in Russia, you face 15 years in jail when you are not writing according to their what their standard is, or fake news. Well, it's of course ridiculous, but okay. But I wrote what I saw, and I don't know, I never heard any complaint from the Russians here or whatever. So it's just I wrote what I saw, and that's what I always try to do, because that's what journalism is about, I think.
And so what do people in the West not understand about this war in Ukraine? There's a lot of things you could call it. You could call it special military operation. I've often called it, as my viewers know, the hot phase of the war, because I think the war started in 2014. Depends on your interpretation of history. But this thing that's happening down there in the Donbass, what do people in the West not understand about it?
Well, they didn't get the information, what you said, from 2014 until the start of the special operation. So this whole 8 years, they don't know about. Maybe they heard a little bit in the media, there's a war going on, but they are separatists. They said they are not good people because they are supported by Russia. And, Russia just want to grab the land or want to confiscate Ukraine. And this is what they think. So this is what they got in the media, but not the real story of what really was going on.
So for them, this just kind of happened in February of 2022 out of nowhere.
Yeah, and then, of course, the politicians in the West are saying, look, Russia is taking the land of Ukraine, and it's not good because they are starting a war. And Ukraine has to be a sovereign EU state, of course. So this is what they say, and they missed this whole period.
Well, one thing I could say, this might be a little bit of a long question, so have a little patience here.
No problem.
Okay, so the West is always very confident that the West is the best, okay? It's very, I think probably even since like the Roman times and so on and so forth, the West has seen itself as being, the apex of civilization, the best. So I kind of understand how they may not care what's happening. The Russians are bad because they're against us, and that's all that matters. But now the Russia being against the West has come at a cost. You mentioned before this interview that the cost of electricity and stuff in the Netherlands is so insane that you were actually forced to sell your family business at some point. So is the mentality in the West, maybe in Europe, I mean, I know the American mentality. I'm well exposed to America and Canada. Sure. But I mean like in your Netherlands, your Belgium, your Germany, are people starting to think, okay, the West is the best, but we need to just let this go. We need to maybe just let this Ukrainian thing go. Has the attitude started to change or not really?
Well, I think especially in the eastern part of Germany, it's changing, but it was changed already during the COVID time, so I know that. Yeah. But in the Netherlands, I hear now some voices saying, yes, it cannot be like this. Our prime minister there, Rutte, is telling us every Friday night, yes, it's our war and we have to fight for this and we have to suffer for this and we have to suffer because Ukrainians are dying because of Russia. So, it's crazy. And a lot of people now see, but it's crazy because, I cannot eat and Ukrainians are, for Ukrainians, it's far away. So why? So I think people wake up now a little bit. I hope a lot of people, I'm not sure yet, but I think we have an opposition party, for instance, in the Netherlands, and they are doing well now. And he is explaining all the time on TV or social media that, this Ukrainian war was actually made, what we said before, from 2014. This is actually what was happening. And it's not a war from Russia. It's just a special operation and trying to help the people there because they are suffering already for 8 years. So I hope people take notice of this. And of course, now the people their gas bill is very high. Oh, yeah. The food is very expensive. So
unfortunately, it's gotten expensive here too. I don't know if you've noticed, but someone with kids, it's a little rough. But anyways, I cut you off there. So,
No problem. But so this is now when usually you come to people their food or their basic needs like gas or heating, warm, then they start. I hope they start rising up. They do already. They do. I think this coming weekend there's another demonstration going on in the Netherlands, East Germany. Every Monday night they walk for this point. So.
Now, what are these opposition forces in the Netherlands called? What is this group?
Forum for Democracy. Oh, okay. It's a political party. So, and he's quite good. This guy already did, when the Syrian war was on, he was already explaining, what is going on. So, let's hope.
Here's a less political question. I've noticed with a lot of foreigners who come to Russia, there's sort of these two camps. There's sort of the people who come here because they want to and they tend to like it, and the people who sort of found a job here or they met some girl and they come here kind of by accident. They tend to not like it very much. Now, you never planned to start a life here. So is it hard to adapt to Russia when you never really asked to be here? Are there things here that are starting to be annoying besides the language? That's, of course.
Yeah, the language is, okay, I'm trying to learn it now.
Yeah.
But no, it's a bit easier for Europeans because actually Russia is Europe. I mean, a large part of it, like Moscow or St. Petersburg, are more European. So no, okay, the life, well, it's a little bit similar, like it was before the old Great Reset thing.
Wow, so modern Russia is the Europe before the Great Reset.
Yes.
That's our quote of the day here.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, that's what I think, because, you see all these shops here, well, a lot of shops, you see all the museums, you see the beautiful buildings, and you see modern people walking. And so, of course, there are differences. That's normal. That's... but before the Great Reset, people like in Europe tend to get married, maybe get children or get divorced somehow.
Well,
but
that happens.
Happens, yeah, I know. But now, this woke ideology in Europe, like maybe in the US, it's kind of crazy.
Well, the thing is, I kind of have the weird experience of some people are kind of that are kind of our viewers and fans think that maybe I had some sort of prophetic vision of like where things were going. And the thing is, in a lot of ways, wokeness really, I think, happened in the African American community first. And I'm from a black neighborhood, and so this, like, especially the death of the family, that stuff, that was all happening when I was a kid in the 90s. Like the whole, I'm a single mother, I don't need a man, feminism. And you can see it. And I could see with the boys around me, the black American boys around me, that the boys who had a dad, the 25%, had much, much better lives than the boys who didn't. And that's one of the reasons why, although things didn't quite turn out with getting married the way I wanted to, I understand that men have to stay in the lives, especially their sons, probably their daughters too, but with their sons, I think it might be even more important. But anyways, this woke stuff, it was experimented on with black people first. Because another thing that I said, one of the, a very long time ago in an interview in Russia, is the point that, I think it actually is about half of black Americans are never born due to abortion. And at that time, I know they've clamped down on it, but that was about the same thing with Russians too.
Yeah.
Exact same thing. And I see the same, and I see some of the same problems that those kids who had no dads do in Russia, because a lot of, people, there's a lot of divorce here. I don't know if you've noticed, but we maybe have conservative values, but we're doing a bad job of it.
Like in Europe.
Well, no, the difference.
No,
the difference is, it's like with Russia, is that Russia's like an alcoholic that knows that drinking is bad. Whereas there's other people that are like, I don't have a problem, I just like to have fun. And so I think that's the thing where people mistake it. It's like people know, okay, we should have a more traditional society, but it's kind of hard to do it after not doing it for a long time and not being in the rhythm,
Yeah, I have to adapt to this point. But I think the same in the Netherlands, because we were always a very open country. I think one of the most open in Europe, actually, I think. So we already had, I don't know, in the 80s, 90s from last century, there were gay men and so on. It was normal. Okay, they didn't go on a boat like a gay parade or something, but they were accepted as long as they don't, make any problems, and no problem. So, but now these people are somehow put on a, pedestal, that they are very... very rare, and but it was not. It's normal. Also, dark people, we have a lot in the Netherlands because we had these colonies, Suriname and Indonesia, and another, the ABC Islands. So it's normal there. And also the people from Suriname are like the dark people in the US, and they usually have no husband, so... mothers only have one, they don't know who the father is, maybe. And so I don't understand why they go along with this whole woke ideology, because it was normal, accepted already, that people are different. And as I said, as long as you stay normal, it was normal, actually. And when I went to school, when I was young, there were already Turkish people, Turkish boys, girls in the class, or a lot of Indonesian. So I was used to it. And now they make a fuss out of it, you know, discrimination and racism.
So anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video and you like the opinions coming out of my big fat mouth, then join up on my Telegram channel. That's Tim Kirby Hardcore on Telegram. Link, of course, in the description.